Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Books Weekly, my Sunday video in which I discuss books that I've either finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And the first book I want to talk to you about is Olivia Laing's The Lonely City Adventures in the Art of Being Alone. If you're watching my channel for some time, you know that I've started this book not last week but 2 weeks ago, and then I forgot to take it with me when I was traveling the week after, so I couldn't finish it, and finally last week I finished it and I loved it. Olivia Laing is a British author. She's born in 1977 and she moved to New York City when in her mid-30s, so 2012-ish, 2013, and she was profoundly lonely there. Not only alone, but lonely. And she's exploring what it means to be alone, first of all, in a big city, but second of all, she finds solace in art, in certain artists who were lonely maybe as well, or whose art reflects loneliness, like the paintings, for instance, of Edward Hopper. You know, the famous diner where there are people, but they are not connecting, they are not talking, they are not communicating. Another artist she talks about in the book is Warhol, but there are also less well-known, at least to the general public, less well-known artists like Klaus Nomi, whom she talks about. So the book is a combination of a memoir of Olivia Laing's experience in those months she was in New York, but it's much more than that. It's focusing on art, but also on she reflects on things like social media. What does it mean if you are alone? What can Twitter mean to you if you are alone? The virtual world in general. She also talks about, when she talks about certain artists, about AIDS and what AIDS meant to the sexual freedom that you could say is a way of combating loneliness, sexual encounters. So the book is a mixture of reportages about the city, but also mainly about art. Like I said, I really, really loved it. I thought it was very well written, intelligent, thought-provoking, in-depth reflections on art, which you don't see that much with writers. Not many writers, I think, can talk about and write about art very well. But it's also a book that you can't read, at least I couldn't read very fast. You really have to think about what you're reading, and also it really helps if you check out the artist that she's talking about. All of them are present on the internet, so you can find their artwork, because that adds a dimension to the reading if you know what kind of artwork she's talking about. She's a very interesting writer, I think, Olivia Laing. I will leave a link to her website down below, and also if you are considering reading this book, which I highly recommend you do, I will leave a link to an interview with her in the description box, in which she talks about the book. She also reads a little bit about the book. So if you don't know whether this is something for you, maybe check out the interview and see whether you want to read it. But I loved it. And the second book I want to talk to you about is Dorthe Nors' Mirror Shoulder Signal. That's actually the book that I finished from the previous week. Dorthe Nors is a Danish author. The book was published in the original language in 2016 and then was translated this year by Misha Hoekstra into English, and it's shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize. If you are interested, I will leave a link to the Man Booker website down below, and also a link to a Goodreads group called the Man Bookering, in which we read books from the Man Booker International and Man Booker Prize list. It's a really lively group, so if you're interested in the Man Booker, you might want to check it out. Now, Mirror Shoulder Signal is a small book in more than one sense. It's small in size, it's under 200 pages, and it's small in scope. The main character, Sonia, is a 40-something woman. She's a translator. She translates Swedish crime fiction into Danish, and she wants to learn to drive. That's the main story of the book. Her experiences with various driving instructors, her friends, Ellen, who's a professional massage therapist, because Sonia is very tense. So Ellen gives advice on how Sonia should deal with the driving instructors. There's Molly, a friend of Sonia, and we have the relationship between Sonia and her sister Kate, which is somewhat estranged. So the book is small in scope and very introspective. It's written in the third person, but it's all from Sonia's point of view and Sonia's reflections and feelings and thinking. If you're not into that, this is probably not a book for you. I thought it was good. It was not fantastic, but it was a good book. It was very well written. I had some question marks about the translations at some points because some sentences I thought just didn't make sense, but I can't really judge it because I can't read Danish. If any of you out there are Danish and have read the Danish original and the English translation, I would be curious to know what you thought of the translation. The book is also, like The Lonely City, about loneliness, but like I said, focusing on the connection between people, or the missing connection between people. I can see why some people say, well, this is not such a great, fantastic book. Why is it on the Man Booker shortlist? Excuse me. But yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, it's a good book on that topic. And if you don't like the topic, you will probably not like the book, but that doesn't mean it's a bad book. So like I would say, if you are interested in these smaller scope books with one person focusing on her life, on her thoughts, on her feelings, then you might enjoy Mirror Shoulder Signal. By the way, if you were wondering about the background noise just now, we have a flock of crows in the garden, and for some reason they are very excited this morning. Anyway, the next book I read was a debut novel, and that's Linda Smolkin, Among the Branded. It just came out 2nd of May. I talked about this book in my May TBR, to be released in May, because the story sounded interesting. It's about Stephanie Britton, an art director, married, 2 children. One is just off to college and another one is about 10 years old. And on vacation, she discovers a stack of letters from World War II. Some of them are in French, and she starts to translate, or has the letters translated, and the story takes off from there. Now, the book is a self-published book, and I'm always interested, to see what is out there, not only with the regular publishing companies, but as a self-published novel. But unfortunately, I can't recommend this book. It was just not good. First of all, the story was very stereotypical, in the sense that you knew from miles away what will happen. When Stephanie discovers those letters, she has, like I said, one letter translated. It's from not a soldier as she thought, but from a concentration camp. And she tries to find the child that is mentioned in the letter. His name is Izzy, and of course she finds him, and of course he lives only 2 hours away, and of course they befriend, and of course she solves a mystery. I don't know, it's a very, very heavy subject about concentration camps, about survivors, about the Holocaust, written in this very light, you know, beach book, chick lit tone, which I thought was improper. And on top of that, the writing was bad. I don't know, maybe it would have been good if a professional editor had looked at the book, because there are sentences, I just want to give one example. There are sentences, a chapter opens, "Next weekend I put on my shoes and went downstairs." Obviously, it took the whole weekend for her to put on her shoes and go downstairs. And sentences like that occur not once, not twice, but often. So the premise was interesting. That's why I picked the book. That's why I presented it in my May TBR. But it's, yeah, I can't say anything else, but it's just not a good book, unfortunately. And then the last book I want to mention is the book that I've just started yesterday. It's a debut novel also, science fiction, and that is Megan Hunter, The End We Start From. Megan Hunter is a young British author born in 1984 in Manchester, now lives in Cambridge. She studied English literature, and The End We Start From is a dystopian science fiction set in London, in present-day London or near future, but London is flooded. The main character is a young woman who is just about to give birth, and she has to flee London in order, you know, to escape the flood and to find shelter. I read the first, I think, 15 pages, and so far I really like the writing style. It's very crisp, very short. It's a short book as well. It's under 200 pages. It's more like a novella, I think 160 pages. I was sent this book on request by the publisher through NetGalley, by the way, and it's also one of the books that I mentioned in my May to be released, and it's only released mid-May on Kindle. The hardcover will come out much later this year in November, so if you're interested in the hardcover, you will have to wait, but you will wait for my review next week anyway, right? So this was it for this week's Books Weekly. Much about loneliness, a not so great debut novel, self-published, and hopefully an exciting sci-fi dystopian novel that I will read once I've finished filming this video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave me your comments. You know that I love if I can talk to you in the comments. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you soon in my next video. Bye-bye.